Hey everyone, welcome to Value First, the PLG Sales Podcast, the show where I interview PLG growth and sales leaders who share their secrets on how to grow revenue at PLG SaaS companies. Today my guest is Zach Rego. He's a VP Sales and Marketing at Unstack, the no-code marketing platform for marketers and entrepreneurs who want to scale and launch their business fast. Zach has years of experience in sales, building and killing it as a sales rep and also as a sales leader. Zach, welcome to the show. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me, Fred. Appreciate it.
Why don't you start by just introducing what Unstack does, what's the problem you're trying to solve, and what the platform's all about?
Yeah, so Unstack was kind of built out of necessity by the co-founders, one of which had a lot of experience working with and building CMSs for the companies he worked for. The other was a non-technical CEO with a small marketing team that struggled to manage their custom coded site. It was just slow to go to market. If they needed to launch a new page, it took a long time, or they had to get a developer or take someone off of, their product to actually build their site, which is just not a scalable model. And, they came together with this idea of building kind of a no code marketing platform that was much more than a drag and drop website builder, but that plus all of the marketing tools your marketing team needs to scale. So analytics, contact insights, landing pages, A/B testing, and all these things that really allow, a marketer like myself who's strapped for time to be super efficient. We really have been working historically with a lot of B2B startup founders. And more recently, we are working with Shopify store owners as well, which has been a lot of fun. And they definitely have a very similar need.
Yeah, that's interesting. And I mean, Blinks is a customer of Unstack. I love the tool. It's the exact pain point that I had. I mean, there's tools out there to build great landing pages and designs, but then for the marketing teams and the sales teams to have the flexibility to build experiments on top of their website is great. One thing, but again, we're not here to just promote Unstack. One thing I wanted to add to ask to you is you have a very small team. You're leading marketing and sales at the same time. How do you do it? What do you think is the key for maybe an early stage startup that is starting right now and wants to build that marketing and sales motion? You're someone that builds it from scratch right now at Unstack, almost alone. So I wanted to pick your brain on that.
Yeah, I think the first step, and this is, I don't want to say a new process for me. It's something that I've done pieces of over time, but very early at Unstack when I joined, a little over a year ago now. So first step is do as many demos as you can, right? The goal is product-led growth, but you got to really understand what is that entry point where the client gets that aha moment. And the best way to do that is to demo your product a bunch. So, Grant, our founder, spent a lot of time demoing the product. I, was helping him and reviewing his demos before I joined full time, and heard some of the things that the customers on the other end were like, oh, I like that, right? And I ran hundreds of demos before I implemented, almost a touchless onboarding sequence. So I did manual email sequences. I did, manual just booking of calls. I hopped on the demo and demoed folks one-on-one and was doing, in our best months, 70 demos in a month, but it was really information gathering so that I could then go and create an entire email workflow that pushed the right buttons, or video onboarding, support documentation to get, users to engage. And, really that's helped us start to scale touchless sales, which is great for me. Not that I don't, I love demoing, but it's definitely a way for me to reallocate time. But, do a lot of manual processes and things that aren't scalable so that you can implement something that is scalable and, more importantly, successful.
Do you think too much SaaS businesses are going too quick to automation and trying to build their processes before they get actual answers?
I think you can do that if your product is super simple, right? And has one use case for one very specific, persona. I think what's been challenging about our product and great about our product is that we have a lot of features, and we can work very well with founder, one or two woman, man or woman show, just very, very small team, all the way up to, we've got one of the largest airlines in the world using us and a marketing team that is massive and an IT team that, has to get involved in a lead. So we are a lot of things to a lot of different people, which is tough. Um, but as you start to understand what resonates with each of those personas individually, you can start to segment them pretty quickly and put them on a desired path.
Yeah.
If your product is simple and you're targeting, one very specific persona for one very specific use case, then you can go to automation faster. I would, you're running demos, so you know what it is. Like, you got to be on the phones hearing from customers early. So I think that's important.
Yeah, yeah, but I think one thing I'm always struggling with is transitioning from non-scalable stuff to actually building the flywheels behind them.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned doing demos, reaching out, manual sequences, and all that good stuff that you do at first to validate and to make sure you get that traction. But I think a lot of people may be wondering, how do you transition from that to something that is more stable? Because right now you have a scalable engine at Unstack, but you're still very few employees. You're still
Right.
running it very leanly. So yeah, I'm curious to go deeper on that. How would you transition from something that is not really scalable to building processes that work?
Yeah, so we're still in kind of a blended model now where we've when I was doing non-scalable things, I was tracking as much as I possibly could. So every one of my emails, was set up in a way where I could see the open rate on the subject line, the reply rate, the meeting booking rate. So I was very strategic in how I deployed the emails, even though it was manual. You kind of create small sequences in HubSpot and start to add to them. And that allowed us to then, after a period of time, say, hey, I've collected enough data. These 6 emails work well. How can I weave that story together with these 6 emails that came from kind of different chapters in my sales process? And that worked well. And we're continually iterating on that. I mean, literally every other week, I hired an email marketing manager and she's been outstanding. But we meet every other week and honestly review every metric from every email and, like, what can we push on and test next. And that's been really helpful. But it all started with data from manual processes. So, one, do things that aren't scalable, but track everything you're doing, down to the open rate, click rate, meeting rate for the one-off emails you're trying to send.
Yeah, I think that's interesting, of the reflex of what's been more put forward in marketing teams, right? To track data and be aware of your data analytics, versus sales. I think sales is getting there in terms of
Yeah.
having more data to make decisions, to build those workflows. You have a lot of experience with merging sales and marketing together. How do you think that's shaping up right now with where we are in software?
I think it's key. I mean, honestly, I saw the results firsthand when I was at WordStream. So I took on a role that was unique at WordStream in that I was a sales leader, built a 15 or 16 person team with a couple managers targeting one persona that we went after. After a couple of years of doing that, I moved to target a different persona and start to build out a team there. And as we grew that team, I became a general manager. And a part of being a general manager is you have to manage all aspects of that kind of piece of the business. And had a great partner in marketing and a couple of great partners in marketing, and we met every week. And what I started to find is, hey, if I would bring in some of my sales reps to the meetings with marketing, they were getting a lot out of it. And what happened was there was this overwhelming amount of communication between the two departments. Literally, like, Tuesday at 1 p.m., we are sending 1 p.m. local time for your leads. We are sending this guide. This guide's call to action is this action. And me and the sales team, when we got that email from marketing on Monday with the calendar for the week, we'd create an email sequence that followed up on the actions in between. So if someone opened that email, they got a follow-up email directly from their rep with a specific kind of piece of nurture content or, a call to action to speak with them. If they clicked in that email, we knew what they were clicking to look at, and we were trying to move them one step further.
Yeah.
If they obviously downloaded the guide, let's say, we were pushing them to another guide to try to get them one step further down the funnel. So we did this system and it worked extremely well in pushing these folks down the funnel, because it went from marketing email that's in a newsletter format or template with a guide, very standardized. Everyone expects to get them to. They did an action. They get a personalized one-off email from a sales rep that seems very relevant, right? Because I just took this
Yep.
action,
Yep.
and the sales rep nurtures them. So the sales rep's goal was to do that little piece that historically marketing would do. And when we started building that, it worked extremely well. Our demos went up. Our engagement from those marketing emails continued to go up. And then we went and deployed that same exact system across the entire sales floor, which at the time was probably close to 100 sales reps. And that process is still in place there, and I think that is kind of blending the marketing calendar, the marketing data, right? We were looking at the data from the emails that marketing was sending to trigger sequences and cadences from sales reps that were more one-to-one.
Yeah. Yeah. How did you build that system though? I agree 100%. I think we're moving towards time-based triggers or time-based touch points, or really sets cadences to more contextual touch points, to using marketing data so that sales can reach out. You've liked my LinkedIn post, I'm going to engage with you on LinkedIn. That's how today, in my opinion, you're grabbing prospects' attention. So it all sounds wonderful, but I'd be curious to know how you build that system.
Yeah. So as a general manager, I did a few resources in the beginning, right? So we actually did it very manual. So we would send the email through marketing, 1 p.m. local time. So we're Eastern.
Yeah.
In the morning, we would have folks in the UK that were getting it, so on and so forth. The marketing team would then just send out a report from Salesforce, XYZ opened this email, and we would just have that on the sales reps, inbox when they started the day. They would open it. They would have all their UK one at 1 p.m. Eastern. They would open it. They would have their, and so on and so forth. And we just kept an eye on it. Really on the frontline sales managers to, kind of beat down the doors of the sales reps. Hey, get on these. You haven't followed up with the folks that clicked in the email, get on these 10. Over time, we started to actually automate that and build it into, at the time we used Salesforce and Marketo. Marketo would just send an alert to the rep for the trigger that happened, right? So the Marketo would fire an email to me, the sales rep, that said, Fred clicked link in XYZ email. Here's the email. Here's the guide. And we just automated that entire process to no end. But we never automated the email from the sales rep, because the real value there is that the sales rep is personalizing that email based on either previous conversations, previous actions, or previous objections, right? So it's allowing the sales rep to really tailor something that's super specific. And that's again, like, not super scalable, but anyone can create a trigger off of a Marketo. Marketing can create a trigger off of Marketo open and fire another email, but that's not what people are looking for nowadays. We need to have some personalization in there.
Yeah, and I think there's two interesting things you said in there. Is not making it too complex. I think when people are starting to think about marketing processes and sales processes, they're trying to overcomplicate things and buy all of the complex systems and make a lot of integrations. But I was listening to one of your recent podcasts, 0 to a Million, and you told a story about just the act of just starting, just taking the first leap. And I think you said, like, the first time I changed my son's diaper was the first time I changed my son's diaper. And it seems dumb, but it just clicked for me that just starting to do something and doing it in a simple manner will tell you way more than if you try to overcomplicate the process. So I think that's something you're telling here. The other part is about automation. So I want to get your point on that, because I think that automation is great for some purposes, for some of your workflow, but people are getting tired of generic messages, or getting tired of, like, receiving an invite on LinkedIn and then a sales pitch. How do you think is the best way to use automation and not use automation right now for SaaS businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I think automation is necessary. But I think I know you can make automations personalized at scale. And that's not, I think it's got to get past kind of the surface level, hey, hi, first name,
Yeah.
are you still excited about XYZ for insert company name? Like, these are just really generic things that are happening. So, where we tried to use automation is any data we accumulated. I think, like, Klaviyo does a really good job of this on the e-commerce side. but any data we accumulated, we inserted into the email. So an example at WordStream, we had an AdWords performance grader. It was kind of our wedge into the market. It was how we got leads to our door, and we had thousands of them downloaded every month where people were linking up their Google AdWords account, and we were getting, access to like the performance of it. So we started building scalable emails through Marketo that came from the sales rep or the sales leaders that inserted stats from that email and told a story specifically about their performance on Google Ads. Hyper specific. No one would really know that it was automated because it went deep. Like, you added 25 negative keywords last month, and that's causing X, Y, and Z to happen to your account with a decline in click-through rate of 7%. Like, if anyone gets that email, they're probably not assuming it's automated. So
it's a bot that send it. Yeah.
I think automation is needed because we are trying to reach out to thousands of people at scale. But you've got to find ways to make it hyper personalized at scale. And the other place I've seen it work really well, and we've been building a lot of this and testing a lot of this, is personalization and on-site experience. Historically used by very large e-commerce brands, Unstack's bringing that to B2B startups. And insane not to use it where, Fred, if you come to our site, it says build blinks on Unstack, right? And it is telling you what you can do with our platform in the context of your business, but that can also be done in a much more targeted manner where I can now nurture people with an email, feed the data from the HubSpot email into the landing page at scale. So there's personalization in the email that we're bringing into play, but we're also bringing it to the landing page, which is really powerful because our mailing list isn't huge. Our click-through rate from email to landing page isn't huge. So we need to maximize conversion rate on page. And carrying that context over is just a huge win. And something I think everyone should be trying to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you 100%. I think that the action itself or the workflow can be automated, but sales leaders or sales reps or marketing people need to be more thoughtful about being contextual. And I give an example of Unstack in the PLG sales ebook that I wrote. I was starting to use Unstack, writing blogs and posting blogs on the site, and I got an email saying, "Hey, like we think you're thinking about blogs and writing some content. Here are quick tips about writing blogs." And I knew this was automated, but it was so contextual to my situation at the time and what I was wanting to do as a user, that it was so like working alongside me rather than trying to upsell me or like upgrade me to something. That was amazing. So I think that what you're saying here is really interesting. Of you can automate the workflow, but the personalization needs to shift from time-based to using first name, company name, and like value prop to using, marketing engagement, what you've liked, what you've done in the product. So that's really interesting. Where do you think product actions shape? Because I think that's
I was just going to say, you brought up that point.
That's one of the things we're trying to figure out right now at Blinks in our product, and what we offer is like bringing product actions into those sales touch points. How do you think that integrates into the flow that you already have?
Yeah, if you are a SaaS company, the first thing you should do is pick a email service provider or marketing automation platform that you can easily integrate actions from your product with, or find tools that can easily integrate actions from your products with. Because all the examples that you and I just gave were because we were integrating the product to the email campaigns. So you're exactly right. Like we built a full integration from Unstack to our ESP to tell us when Fred's launching blogs, or when Fred publishes a page, or when someone links a custom domain, right? Those actions come from the demos that I was doing when it was like, okay, what's the next hurdle I need to get these folks to do? And as I was identifying the hurdles, I'm writing them down and saying, okay, this is my email triggers, and these are the triggers that I want to fire from the product to send these folks kind of down the next workflow. So, early in your product lifecycle, you should be thinking about how can we send user actions to sales folks and our marketing automation platforms to guide the customers to take the next step.
Yeah. How do you think
one last thing? Don't rely on in-app alerts. We took out in-app alerts. We built them into our product, but we were using a third-party tool. It's great, but those pop-ups just become just a distraction. And
Yeah.
it's taking people and it's guiding them where you think they should go, as opposed to, in your case, right, you went to the blog sooner than you went to build a page. And like, that's the slightly opposite flow that I would have originally thought. But now we've got a trigger that says, hey, here's what Fred's doing, nurture these steps. Much more effective than our initial flow, which was you log in and we tell you where to go. Okay, but like, try to let user actions define where you guide them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I was talking to another SaaS, and they removed their onboarding sequence completely. They had a time-based onboarding sequence that wasn't contextual per se. They removed it completely. It had no effect on conversions, no effect on retention. So I think the same thing goes for in-app notifications, and all of your touch points with your prospects it has to be contextual value add, and it needs to be in the context of what they're trying to achieve in your product and just helping them get past certain milestones. To go a bit deeper on that, how do you think that affects the role of the sales rep in the relationship? If you have a flow and automate and your touch points and contextual, do you still need sales reps? How does their relationship changes with the prospects as it would before, for example?
Yeah, I think it depends a lot on the average contract value, or average ASP on the monthly recurring revenue if you don't have a contract. That is huge. Like, we've got a relatively low ASP. We are trying to make this accessible for startup founders. I am the VP of sales and I'm doing demos. Like, that is not a cost-effective scalable model, but it is the way we have to do non-scalable things to find, the best way to be scalable. I'm a proponent for having salespeople, and regardless of your ASP, unless it's in kind of the $9 range. But your goal should have some sort of product-led growth strategy where the salespeople might not deal with free trials. They might deal with folks that are on a paid plan at $29 a month, and the sales reps are comped on net retention and how they can get people to go from 29 to 149 or whatever it may be. And that is a little bit of a different model, and that's a model that we are planning to adopt early in 2022, which is very much we've got a ton of users. We've got a ton of free users that have, sites that they're driving traffic to. We've got a lot of paying users that are in plans that are effective, but we think they should be using our bigger and better tools to scale. And we're going to be launching a new product that is going to be, $500 a month, let's say ASP. Like, that is going to be where we see a sales rep coming into play. So I think historically it's been a lead comes in, a sales rep calls it.
Yeah.
It should be a lead comes in, they navigate to a point where they are either paying customer and you want them to upgrade, or free customer, but you've defined enough kind of firmographic information from them to understand that they are a mid-market enterprise type client for you, that you should have someone nurturing that relationship for a bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it comes back to prioritizing. And for SaaS that are marketing led or product led, you want to have those data points and track data that can tell you who in my leads or free signups do I need to ignore, who do I automate, and who do I try to convert and expand. And I think that's really important to making sure that your automation is great and you convert maybe 70% of your leads on your own, but you still want sales reps to engage in a more high touch manner with those leads that have a high conversion potential or high expansion. In terms of the sales reps relationship with prospects, one thing you talk about in your post on LinkedIn or in your podcast is really connecting with customers and connecting deeply. And we've talked about it with the contextual aspect of SaaS today. I know you're a big fan of golf, so I have to ask you, what do you think sales is going right now with COVID, with the digital world, with connecting, but we're seeing less golf games and in-person events. Do you think that'll come back? How do you think the sell to prospect relationship is changing?
I got a bunch of friends. I got a bunch of buddies that have a standing 12 o'clock tea time every Friday at noon. They're all outside sales reps. So that tells you what they're doing. And they're not golfing with clients. They're golfing with each other. Now, good for them. They make good money. They get to golf at Friday at noon. I think outside sales reps in the historical, like field reps, the way we've thought about them for years. I got a territory. It's Raleigh. I've got key accounts. There's 8 of them. I talk to those folks, once a quarter and try to upsell them here and there. And I get accelerators based on, retaining and growth. I think that's going away, mostly because I think the companies that have been paying these folks $200 to $300, $400,000 a year found that these folks were sitting at home with a computer and were driving the same amount of revenue, in some cases even more. You look at a company like Asana, right? More of an enterprise company. They've gone product led. There are, hundreds of companies that OpenView, if you follow them, have studied to say like, hey, these folks went product led, never had a free trial in the history of the company throughout COVID, and grew revenue, 20, 30, 40%. These are multi-billion-dollar companies. Yeah. And the sales reps are collecting and then also have received a revised commission plan that they are none too happy about. Most profitable for the company. And I think that's the future of it. Will be even enterprise sales will be done mostly over Zoom. And that in-person relationship. I think events will come back, but I don't think I'm taking my client golfing will come back. I think it's there and it'll happen. But I think most of these companies will go with ISRs moving forward and increase their profitability tremendously.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, sales are still there though. You see 40% of Slack's revenue under S1 is sales converting high paying accounts. But I think you'll see in SaaS companies, the revenue per employee will increase. You may not need a 30 people sales team as a mid-sized company, maybe 20, but they're more efficient and you have automation processes and your reps close more. They're less spending time on activities that are not converting to revenue. So I agree. Maybe the last subject that I want to touch on is, what do you think are the biggest mistakes? Because you have a lot of experience, you mentor a lot of companies in SaaS, in sales. What do you think are the biggest mistakes for the early companies that are listening to this show? What do you think are the early mistakes to avoid when starting a sales motion, especially at a product-like company?
Not picking up the phone. Everyone's
scared of the phone.
Everyone has become so reliant on, cold email outreach, hiring, outsourced VAs to just fire off 5,000 LinkedIn messages, a month. Pick up the phone. Fred, like you're a founder, you're going to get so many more email replies if you leave voicemails on. If you leave 50 voicemails and send 50 emails, you're going to get 2 to 3x the replies than if you just sent 1,000 cold emails. Like
for sure.
It's because they hear your voice, they hear the emotion you have, they hear your passion behind it and why you're excited about reaching out. Plus, you're more than likely the only relevant voicemail they got that day. My voicemail is filled with, car salespeople. I bought the car 6 months ago. And I've even told these folks I bought the car 6 months ago. Like, but if you called and left me a voicemail that was hyper relevant to a platform that, I needed, okay, I'm excited. Now, when your email comes through, I'm much more inclined to 1, read it, and 2, reply to it. So pick up the phone, find a list, buy a list, call.
Yeah, that's great advice. That's great advice. And it comes back to your diaper story. Go listen to Zach's podcast if you wanna have that full story.
Diaper stories.
I think it comes back to that, to just do it just start doing it in a meaningful way. And I've got a lot of feedback from people recently of like, hey, outreaching doesn't work anymore. Nah, it doesn't. Like, obviously sending 10,000 emails that are all the same and the only thing that changes is first name or company name, obviously that's not going to work. But don't tell me LinkedIn outreach doesn't work. I spent 30 minutes last week outreaching to people on LinkedIn, got 10 meetings booked. Like it doesn't not work. You just have to completely understand what people have as problems, work alongside them, be relevant, do things that stand out. And I think that's the gist of your of your advice. And yeah, pick up the phone. Pick up the phone.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I wish I could grab a t-shirt I have right now, but I used to, one of my early sales teams that I built at WordStream made me a shirt. It says the Rego bunch with like the Brady Bunch logo with all of their faces in the squares and me in the middle. And then on the back, it just says pick up the phones.
Yeah, just pick
which
up.
Is, which was basically I could have had a button that just said it and I could have just pressed it and the whole floor would have heard. But yeah,
Amazing.
That's a good motto to live by.
Yeah, that's great insight. I think it's time to wrap up. You're a busy person. Like any respectful podcast, I think I have to ask you quick fire questions. It's just
cool.
I have to fit in with the mold of podcasting. So I'm gonna shoot couple quick fire questions. You ready?
Yep.
Cool. What have I not asked you that you think I should ask? Classic sales question.
Biggest challenge selling a product that's very early.
Okay, what's the biggest challenge of selling product that's very early? I'm curious about the answer because that's what I have for sure.
It's finding that product market fit is still in flux. So you're defining personas as you're selling. So the motion's very broad across who you're going after, size of the company, what person within the company. So, that is something that when you join a sales organization that has, some hierarchy, a VP of sales is there and you come in as a director of sales and there's 30 sales reps, like they've already figured it out. You're just pouring fuel and systems on the fire. When you get to an early stage product or you're an early stage founder, the product's malleable. So you're kind of moving it to where it fits within the market. And I think that's super challenging.
How would you figure it out?
Yeah, just banging our heads against the wall, sitting on Zooms together, having a beer and going, all right, what do we do? And I think the other part is I work with, a founder who's a product, former chief product officer, very product driven. So he's super receptive, which I think is key. Like listen to your salespeople early because they're the one that's taking the feedback. And, I happen to be on the exec team. So he takes my feedback well, but he would take anybody's feedback and think about it and listen and try to implement. I think that's really important as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing that I've realized with starting Blinks is be extremely self-aware, be transparent and honest about yourself and look at yourself in the mirror and you'll see answers that you wouldn't normally get. Amazing. Second question, which CEO or founding team do you look up to and why? Your own.
Yeah, no, I would never do that. Obviously I think Ben Chestnut, if you look at MailChimp today, this week, right? Like, pretty awesome. Bootstrap,
Bootstrap, 12 billion, 14 billion.
12 billion, the largest bootstrapped acquisition of all time. Listen to the, I think it was How I Built This with him, not to plug another podcast, but that one's big enough that I don't think we're quite, competing either of us against them. Listen, the one with Ben Chestnut was awesome. And their stories, super interesting. It was an agency, right? It was a services business that built a bubblegum and toothpicks platform to help their clients and was like, oh geez, this is working. Same with like Shopify. Like I think, Toby's done an incredible bit of work there. I think if I was looking at smaller companies that I'm really interested in right now, Andrew Gazdecki with MicroAcquire, which is a really cool marketplace. I think that to me is just the way to build a marketplace is the way he's done it. He's built in public, really, transparent, somewhat braggadocious sometimes because they're doing well. I'd be nice to see if they have a pullback or high churn at some point, just to see how he handles it. I don't want them to fail by any means. I subscribed. I love it. I think it's really cool to see that people are bootstrapping these companies and selling them online pretty easily. So gave you two, but those are two good ones I've been really excited about.
Cool. What's the most underrated tool, growth technique, or skill for sales in your opinion?
Blinks. No,
okay,
that's not
nice.
Fair. No, that's not fair. Don't cut me off there. No, I love what you're building. I love what you're building. I use it. I've been a user for a month and a half now. Super helpful, easily integrated into my workflow. So a huge fan of that. One that I think super underrated that people should be using, and I know the guys there and hopefully they get some business from this, Crystal. Crystalknows.com.
I've been a Crystal user for 2 years.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's great.
Talk about a company, you should get those guys on. They're really sharp. They've done a great job of product-led growth and having a wedge in the market with their Chrome extension. They took a while, obviously try to figure out how to monetize all those users.
Yeah.
But wow, what a great tool. Super simple. Again, fits into your workflow seamlessly. Anything that can do that as a sales leader, you should be bringing to your team. And then as an individual rep, if you can go get a license for $9 a month, it's totally worth it. And then hopefully you can become a champion for the rest
Amazing.
of the sales team.
We'll add the links in the description. Last one, something you wish you knew when you were 20.
Two things.
Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone. No, I was doing that actually. I was already cold calling lacrosse stores trying to sell them stickers.
Nice.
Yeah. No. Geez, invest in real estate. Save some money to invest in real estate. You should buy a home as early as you can, and hopefully a duplex, and rent out half of it. And then the other one, you're not going to get rich on a startup that gets acquired. Not the first one, at least. So don't have any preconceived notion when you go to get that first job at 22, 23. Find a company with a sales leader you think you can learn a lot from, and that's going to give you exposure to as many things as possible. Don't worry about what you're going to make for a salary. Don't worry that much about what you're going to make for commission. And certainly don't worry about how much equity you're getting, because chances are the more equity you're going to get is going to come down the line, or you're getting that knowledge base to go do something great on your own. And that's how you get rich. It's not by, working for a company that gets acquired.
That is great advice. Amazing. Well, thanks, Zach. Really enjoyed our chat. Hope our listening will do too and take some good insights from it. If people want to know about Unstack, they can go to unstack.com. And what's the best way to reach you aside from picking up the phone?
Yeah, pick up the phone. I'd love that. No, LinkedIn honestly is the channel I'm most active on. Happy to connect with anybody. Happy to hop on a call. If you have demos that you're running and you're a founder or, an early stage sales rep or the first sales hire, happy to do a demo review with you as well. I think it's important that, we give back to the community, and I've learned a little bit from being terrible, and I'd love to help you shortcut the time that you're banging your head against the wall.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks, Zach. Really appreciate your time, and have a good one. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah.